Well, good afternoon. Uh, Today I wanted to share with you two paintings, new paintings I've done. This painting that's up on the easel is, I call it like the rock star, the 80s rock star painting. I just wanted to have a lot of fun with that painting. That's one of my favorite paintings I like. And also, the title of it is called The Dancing Hare. And this one is my favorite. I really love this one, which it was posted on some other my postings, but the name of it, I didn't tell the name of it, is called Vaginas Rock. So we rock, ladies. Anyway, it's one of my favorite paintings that I've done recently. It's pretty new. Today I wanted to just discuss a topic. Not really, I'm not coming from a scripture or anything. I just want to talk about it just from my perspective, my point of view, just based on different readings, all kind of articles and journals I've read, and going to college and all the things I've done, just my personal experiences. I know teaching sex or talking about sex seems like it can never be discussed or taught enough when it comes to relationships, and especially within the church. And so I've always wanted to discuss it. I have 8 keywords that I wanted to go over. The first word is abstinence. And we know that abstinence has to do with reframing or not having sex for long periods of time once you become an adult and you try to live a certain type of lifestyle. Also, I kind of related to, if you're a virgin, it's really best for you to remain a virgin for as long as possible, for as long as you possibly can, because once you start having sex, and especially if it's good and you have somebody that you really care about, it's hard to stop having sex, regardless of whether you're trying to practice the Christian principles or you're not trying to practice them. It's just hard to stop once you start having sex. So abstinence is I think about remaining in virginity. Try to remain a virgin for as long as you can. And then once that part of your life is over with and you become an adult and you start to have sex, it's hard to practice abstinence, to abstain from it. But one thing that will help is to learn about fasting. Fasting helps with just about everything, really. It helps with everything. But like I said, it's best not to engage in anything at all, because you're not going to be able to have as much self-control as you think you are. People always think, I can handle it. No, you can't. So that's the first word I wanted to discuss. The second word is masturbation. Nobody likes to talk about this. I remember growing up, a teenager in my early 20s, in the 90s. I remember being in the 90s. And, even some in the 80s or whatever, if you couldn't mention, certain words or whatever, like if you said the word, masturbate or masturbation, it's like, oh, you were a terrible person, you get in trouble, or nobody wants to talk about that. I don't understand why, because teenagers and young adults, even adults, we need to discuss things like this. Nothing to be ashamed of. When you go back and you read about psychology and human behavior, it's normal for people to desire sex. Human beings have to be touched. We desire to be loved in a sexual way, and I'm not saying all the time, or you put sex before everything else. You try to get to know people first and develop a friendship. But I'm just saying, you shouldn't make people. The church shouldn't make people feel bad. If you mention masturbation, you should be able to discuss certain words and not, feel like, people make you feel like you're ashamed or you should be ashamed of yourself, or no, it's very normal. And that's why I'm discussing this on my show and doing it the way I want to do it. And we all know that masturbation meaning touching yourself in certain areas. You're having sex with yourself. I feel like it's very much normal, but at the same time, when you're trying to live by Christian principles, it could also be seen as, sinful, because once you keep thinking about sex, and you do that. Well, once you masturbate, then you don't want to have sex with someone else. So it's just best to try to stay away from any kind of sex, whether it's masturbation. Just try to abstain, because really masturbation is really not abstain. It's just that you're not with another person. But sometimes I know it's allowed, but at the same time, I feel like that God understands what people are going through. And sometimes it is a necessity, but at the same time, you can't make it a habit. The next word is fornication. I want to mention fornication. We know is you having sex, you're not married, whether it's premarital, unmarried sex, whatever, you're single. A lot of people fall into this. It's hard to be single, especially when you're an adult, and not have sex or not engage in fornication. You're not married. It's hard to just not do that. I think this is a big sin for a lot of people. I know I have struggled in this area, because when you've been married, you go through marriage, you go through divorce, and all, it's just hard to be by yourself. And you don't want to jump up and rush into marriage again. But at the same time, you don't want to just always just having sex with a bunch of different people or whatever. You don't want to do that either. But at the same time, you don't want to be by yourself. So it's hard. It's hard. This was a big sin, I think. I mean, being is popular. It's one that I think a lot of people struggle with. Married sex, of course, is when you're married, legally, not living together. There's a lot of people I found out are just living together. They're not married. It's like that's what people do now. They don't get married. They have a bunch of kids. They live together for years and years. Then they finally get married. So, I don't know. I'm not judging you. I'm just having a discussion. That's what people do now. But hopefully you will get married legally. You go, have a wedding ceremony, whatever, according to law. Hopefully, married sex, I think, is the best kind of sex, and I think that's the sex that we all want to have someday. As a Christian person, or even if you don't go to church, but just as an adult, I think everybody would like to find that special person that they could enjoy sex with. Adultery is when you're married and you're cheating, you're having affairs, you're having sex with someone else other than your husband, or if you're a guy, other than your wife. This one is very common. It's a very common sexual sin. And I think everybody commits. I've seen people commit it in the church. Like, I've seen sinners and saints commit all of these sexual acts that I'm talking about. So, it's very common. Very common. Sexless marriage is the next word I want to discuss. That's very common. Because I know a lot of people married, they are very miserable, very unhappy. They're not even having sex. Some people sleeping in separate rooms. I think this is the biggest sin, and it's like a slap in the face to God when you get married and you're not even having sex. Sexless marriage, that is the saddest thing. I think that's awful. I think that's the biggest sin. People always want to jump on the single people, because you are having sex and you're not married. But I think people that are married and they don't even have sex, I think that's terrible. I think that's worse than fornication. Because marriage, that's the whole point of marriage. You found somebody to enjoy everything with, and especially sex, because now it's no longer considered to be sinful because you are married. So I definitely understand that one. sexless marriage. I don't understand it at all. 7, unusual sex. Today, the culture we live in today, I just chose the word unusual because I don't even know how to describe some of the things that you read about, that you see on the news and on the internet and books and TV, etc. I mean, you have people, I mean, this is where, to me, people just wilding out. They just buck wild. I mean, they having sex with men, women, everybody together, group sex, whatever. I mean, these are people that just, they wild. That's why I just say unusual. That's a category that I don't go over there. I don't know. That's a lane. I stay in my lane. That's not for me. So, but there are people out there that believe in having multiple sex partners and, you know, all kind of stuff. Being married to more than one wife and have a string of people that they deal with like that. So, whatever. We know that's sin, so that's like terrible. And then the last word I want to mention that dealt with sex is celibacy. Celibacy is when you make a special vow to God and you make a commitment to God where you don't want to have any kind of sexual relationship with a man at all. I think when I think about celibacy or people who are celibate, I think of like a priest, a monk, a nun, missionary. Those are very special people where they don't want to have a sexual adult relationship with, you know, a man or a woman. They don't want that at all. They just, you know, they're taking on the special work to do, and they feel like maybe that type of relationship will give them away. I don't know, I've always been on the fence about that, because I've always, when I say on the fence, meaning I understand part of the psyche behind it, the psychology, the theology, but at the same time, I don't agree with it, because I believe everybody should have sex. I don't care if you're a priest, a nun, whatever. I feel like it's nothing wrong with having a husband or a wife. If you're a man having a wife, sharing your life with somebody, sharing intimate, personal secrets with, being able to open up about sex and explore sexuality. I think that's a beautiful thing. Sex is a beautiful thing. To be naked, to me, is a beautiful thing. People make a big deal about nudity, which I think is silly. I know that everything has to be in a proper context and content. I understand that, but some people just, I think it's the way you think. If you perverted, you have a perverse mind, and you always lusting and all that, well then, you know, you may have a problem with it. But when you think back on scripture, I mean, in the beginning, Genesis, Adam and Eve, they were naked. They didn't even know they were naked until sin came into play. So, I don't know. A lot of things I disagree with, and I've always had a problem with that. I always wondered about that. Cause when you look around and you discover all these, when the news comes out about what happened with the priests or the Catholic Church and all that stuff that was going on, molesting those children and stuff, and then you find out some of them are in relationships. That's why I feel like it's wrong to not allow them to have sex in the first place. I think like I said, I believe, and I think everybody should have sex. I don't care what kind of title you have. Just because you are a priest or you a nun or whatever, missionary, and you fall in love with somebody, doesn't mean that you love God any less. So I've never understood that. I've always kind of disagreed with that, because I think you need to share your life with somebody in a very intimate way. I mean, that's what makes life worth living, is when you find, you know, a special person that you can share everything with. So I've never disagreed with that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed, you know, my point of view about sex. I've just always wanted to discuss it the way that I wanted to discuss it. Everybody act like they're ashamed, you know, walk around in church, you know, they act like they're ashamed to talk about sex. Which I've just always thought was silly, because I think that's a problem when you try to hide sex and you don't talk about it. Like, I remember growing up, running around the house. I remember being in middle school, and I was getting ready to start high school, and I wanted to know about sex. I remember my parents, they were so embarrassed to talk about sex with me. They had a really hard time discussing that anything with me, you know, and I just wanted to know. And I think when you try to hide sex, or you don't discuss it in a proper manner on a level that your children, your teenagers, young people can understand, I think that makes them, they go out and they find out. You know, like I did, I'm going to find out. I'm going to ask somebody. If you don't tell me the truth, then I'm going to go find out. I'm going to go ask someone else. And that's not, you don't want that. You want them to ask you. If you are a parent, or, you know, maybe you're in some kind of a position of authority, you know, you want them to be able to talk to the right person about sex. You don't want them to just talk to anybody. Because a lot of people, they go outside of people who really care about them. They'll just tell them anything. You want them to know about protection and HIV and STDs and AIDS, and you want them to know the effects of having sex too early, and they're going to end up hurt and disappointed and heartbroken, because just because a man, a young man or older man, just because they have sex with you, it does not mean that they love you. Sex and love and commitment, they're all three different things. And it takes guys, well, I've learned, well, men, it takes men a long time to make a commitment. They can be with you and still be thinking about having sex with somebody else. It takes them a long time to make a commitment. I mean, I've seen men that have gotten women pregnant and living with them, and they're still talking to other women. So you just have to wait, be patient. You know, I had to learn that I made a lot of mistakes in relationships, and I can be transparent and honest with you. I'm not ashamed to talk about my mistakes, the sins that I've committed, because God loves me and He has forgiven me for everything I've done, and I'm still a work in progress. I'm not perfect, so I don't try to, you know, walk around judging people, condemning people. At the same time, I don't try to walk around like I'm holier than thou, because I'm not. Like I said, I'm still a work in progress. And one thing that I have to mention before I end my little discussion for today, I wish that we as American people stop spreading lies and negative stereotypes, negative racist stereotypes about each other as people, as humans. Because I remember, I want to share this with you, a story. I remember when I got into my 30s, when I hit 30, I just wanted to start dating outside of my race, and I did, because I never had a race issue. For me, the issue is sin, and it's a spiritual issue. It's not skin. Now, we keep getting the two things mixed up for whatever reason. And I remember I was at work, and I was just talking about, I was happy, I was talking about, the guy that I was dating at the time. And I thought he was a really great guy. And I was just telling him, my coworkers, you know, how I thought he was just really a sweet guy, and I was really enjoying being with him at the time. And he came to pick me up one day, and they discovered, that he was a white guy. He was a white guy. So I was like, everybody just totally changed. Their attitude was negative. People were saying all kind of negative things, and, you know, they were saying stuff like, well, she would be the type to date a white guy. I'm like, type? What does that even mean? What type is that? What type is that? I don't even understand the things that people say. And I just think it's so silly that this first thing that came out of their mouth, they said something perverted, something, you know, nasty, something to do with sex. First thing they asked, they didn't even ask, what does he do, or blah, blah. As soon as they found out he was white, well, what's the sex like? I'm like, what? I didn't even answer the question. I don't even want to tell you a lot of stupid things that have been said to me, because it's just ignorant and dumb and stupid. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, he has a penis just like every other man. All men have penises. I don't care if they're white, black, Latino, Asian, Native American. Last time I checked, I'm like, what? So I didn't even know how to answer that question. I didn't even say anything. I just looked at them like, you got to be out of your mind to even say something that's stupid to me out loud. I mean, it's one thing to think something, but sometimes keep it to yourself. So I didn't even say anything. I just ignore people. I just think it's so stupid that we spread these negative stereotypes about each other. You know, they'll make it comments. You know, I'm like, well, I just feel like if you don't want to date outside your race, then that's your business. But don't try to stop other people, because people gonna be with who they want to be with. People gonna love who they love. And I'm just sick of it. You know, I'm just so sick and tired of the stupid comments that people make. You know, they always have this myth that I want to end. You know, they'll have this myth. They're always saying, you know, oh, all black guys have large penises. That's not true. All black guys don't have no large penis, and all white guys don't have small penises. That is not true. That is not true. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to condone sex or the sinful behavior that I was engaged in, but I'm just telling the truth. I get so sick of people making up all these lies, and you know, they always say, oh, black women or, you know, women of color, Latino, we wild and we have a bad attitude. Now, all that stuff is not true. You have to get to know people on an individual basis. Maybe you have ran into a person that just have a bad attitude, they had a poor upbringing, they're just ignorant, uneducated. And I have come to the point in my life, I have reached the age where I have just come to realize some people are just gonna be dumb jackasses their whole life. When they were young, they was dumb jackass. Now they old and they still a dumb jackass. So you just have to ignore people. And I just had to get that off my chest, because I get so sick and tired of, you know, people spreading ignorant, negative stereotypes and rumors about people when they're in an interracial relationship. It's just so, it's beyond any sense to me. I can't even make sense out of the things that I've heard come out of people's mouth. It's just unbelievable. And then those same people always talking about they're Christian, they go to church, but you saying all these negative, you spreading all these negative racist stereotypes. You know, when you found out that, you know, the guy that I was in love with was white, you know, y'all want to say all these negative things, but just a few months ago you were saying you're a Christian. So you can't have it both ways. Either you're a Christian or you're not. If you walking in hate and you spread negative stereotypes, you're not a Christian. So I just think people need to mind their own business. If you don't want to be in an interracial relationship, then don't be in one. But don't get in my business and other people's business who do choose to do that. Mind your own business. And that's all I got to say. I'm finished for today. Thank you for watching Poetry and Paintings from Pens and Brows. See you next time.